It shouldn't be too surprising that the caption of our hearing prompted defensive remarks, but that wasn't the goal. The goal is to have folks who know talk about the cost that this act imposes over and above that which the agencies are spending. And so I'm just going to ask first, Director Williams, if you believe that the ESA listing of the frog has cost the Oregon community money. We've heard a very clear statement of it from one of our witnesses today. I simply need somebody from the government to acknowledge that this law is causing communities and others to bear a cost. Can you say that that is the case?
Mr. Chair, indeed, today I have heard that, and I look forward to visiting even more. And there can be costs to communities, and there, as we discussed yesterday,
yes,
there also can be
There
benefits.
have been enormous costs. Let's talk about the spotted owl. Can you give us the cost to the forest industry in Oregon of the listing of the spotted owl?
Mr. Chair, indeed, that happened before my time
Would
as
you agree
the
that
director.
would you agree that it was in the billions?
In the millions or
Billions.
in the billions? I do not know the answer to the direct cost.
Okay, how about the indirect cost? I simply need the agencies who are in charge of this law to acknowledge that it costs, when implemented, billions of dollars in many situations, especially when we talk about our forests. Can you agree with that?
Mr. Chair, as we talked about, yes, we produce reports.
No, stop. I've got the report right here. I'm about to ask you about it.
Great.
I want to know about the impact of your implementation of the Endangered Species Act. Does it cost communities, in many cases, billions? And by the way, your cohort needs to get ready because I'm going to ask her the same question, Deputy Administrator.
Mr. Chair, I cannot answer that question.
That's fine. Okay,
Billions.
I take it that one of the things I am going to suggest, and as I told you yesterday, propose an amendment to the Endangered Species Act at the very end, last paragraph, where you're to provide a report on your cost. I think you should also be reporting on society's cost in general. And again, I don't want to get into a debate about the benefits. Those are already a given by virtue of the existence of the law. Deputy Administrator Coit, NOAA Fisheries published a recovery plan for the right whale in 2005 that stated the total estimated cost to recover cannot be determined as it will likely take numerous decades and many management activities that are currently impossible to predict. Studies, however, show that vessel speed restrictions, which are being proposed by your agency, the whale could result, these restrictions could result in a loss of 340,000 American jobs and nearly 84 billion in economic contributions. Do you agree or disagree?
Those are not numbers that I can agree with. We have an economic assessment of the cost of the proposed vessel speed rule, and we are updating that as we look at the comments in the rule, but it is nowhere near that number.
Yes, if I recall correctly, it was like 24 million as opposed to 84 billion. So you're off just a bit. I want to shift to Mr. Johns. I know up in my part of the world in Oregon, the local utilities had to move all of their power lines away from crossing vast expanses of sagebrush and over adjacent to county roads, following the county roads in the most Jabberwocky way I've ever seen in my life, the purpose of which was to assist the sage grouse, we hope. There is no doubt in the world that the ratepayers are paying for that. Is the same thing true? Is your utility having to pay for protections, shall we say, implemented by those in charge of the Endangered Species Act?
Sure, Bentz. At this point, we haven't had to do a lot of that, but I have to tell you that as I sat here today and listened to the commentary from my fellow witnesses, I'm reminded of President Reagan's comment, in the current crisis, government is not the solution, government is the problem. And I think, as we think about the Endangered Species Act and the intention of it, it is meant to improve the situation, it is meant to save these resources. And the voluntary acts of organizations like East Central Energy are moving forward without government intervention, and they're solving the problem. We are envisioning a habitat in our rights of way that promote monarch habitat, that promote diversity of species, and we're doing all of it without the restrictions
And I'm
of
very
government.
happy that you're doing that, but the purpose of this hearing is to call out the cost of the act and so that people don't just blithely overlook that which is imposed upon the folks that have to bear the burden, many of them in the West, of these acts. With that, yield back.